And you're recording?
Yes, I am.
Hello, if you're wondering, we're just waiting a few minutes to allow more people to join the webinar. Thank you for joining us.
Good
looks like
afternoon.
everybody's in.
Great.
Good afternoon. I'm Brendan Akamu, Business Development Project Manager, and this is Karen Sir,
Economic Development Specialist. Aloha and welcome to our webinar.
Today, just some housekeeping rules at the very beginning. We are recording this and we will post it on our website after the webinar is done. We're going to begin our presentation. We will be having questions at the very end. So if you'd hold all your questions, and then when we go into our question session, we'll ask you to please click the button to raise your hand. So let's go get started and we will share our screen with you and start the webinar.
We're going to start with a required disclosure for Title VI, and I will be reading this word for word, but not the rest of the presentation. The Hawaii Department of Agriculture does not discriminate on the basis of race, color, sex, national origin, age, or disability, or any other class as protected under applicable federal or state law in administration of its programs or activities, and the Department of Agriculture does not intimidate or retaliate against any individual or group because they have exercised their rights to participate in actions protected or oppose actions prohibited by 40 CFR Parts 5 and 7, or for the purpose of interfering with such rights. If you have any questions about this notice or any of the department's non-discrimination programs, policies, or procedures, you may contact Ray G., Acting Non-Discrimination Coordinator, Hawaii Department of Agriculture, 1428 South King Street, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96814, phone number 808-973-9560, or at HDOA.title6@hawaii.gov. If you believe that you have been discriminated against with respect to a Department of Agriculture program or activity, you may contact the non-discrimination coordinator identified above. To request translation, interpretation, modifications, accommodations, or other auxiliary aids or services for this RFP, contact 808-973-9595 or email hdoa.addrfp@hawaii.gov. Please allow sufficient time for HDOA to meet accommodation requests. Thank you for your patience as we read that disclosure.
So we'll get started now to the Specialty Crop Block Grant Program FY24. We've listed it as RFP 2401 MDB. So our application opened on February 15th and will close on March 18th, 2024 at 12 o'clock noon. To apply for this, we ask that you go to the HDOA website at https://hdoa.hawaii.gov/add/scbgp. We'll also give you more information throughout the presentation, again, where to apply and how to do that. So follow along with us as we take you on the path of the application process.
The purpose of the Specialty Crop Block Grant Program is to enhance the competitiveness of specialty crops. The definition of a specialty crop would be found in Section 101 of the Specialty Crops Competitiveness Act of 2004, which is amended under Section 10010 of the Agricultural Act of 2014, the Public Law 113-79, which is the Farm Bill. But basically it defines specialty crops as fruits and vegetables, tree nuts, dried fruits, horticulture, nursery crops, including floriculture, and eligible plants must be cultivated or managed and used by people for food purposes, medicinal purposes, aesthetic gratification, and those would be considered specialty crops. Processed products should consist of greater than 50% of the specialty crop by weight, exclusive of any added water. Now, to get additional information and a list of these items that are both eligible and not eligible, please see pages 39 to 41 in the RFP. The way to apply for the State of Hawaii Awards and Notices Data System programs, you need to access the HANDS system, and their email, the link is shown here, https://hands.ehawaii.gov/hands/opportunities. Now you're going to be scrolling down and you're going to identify the solicitation number shown there as RFP-24-01-MDB. The title of the actual solicitation is called Specialty Crop Block Grant Program, Fiscal Year 24. Here is some general information that you'll find as you continue scrolling and reading in terms of the proposal. And rather than read it all to you, I'm just going to at least show you the description, which is basically to administer a competitive grant process that's going to award the federal funds for 2023 and support projects that would provide the highest, actually not 2023, but going forward. And the primary goal being to support projects that could provide the highest measurable benefits or return on investment to the specialty crop segment of Hawaii. And again, the release date was February 15th in 2024. And then the offer date will be concluding at 12 noon on March 18th. Now, the computer system is designed such that if you were to hit click at 12:01 according to our clock, then actually we'll never receive your application. So please try to do that in advance, as sometimes documents being uploaded into the system, and if many people are applying at the same time, that may clog the system. So you want to make sure you do it well in advance of 12 noon. As we continue with the HANDS posting, there are 8 specific items that you would need to access to complete your application. Now, they're shown below, Exhibit A, Exhibit C, and going forward, and we will be going over them one by one.
So the most important thing we'd like you to do is to download the RFP. This will give you specific information regarding your application. When you download the RFP, it will look like this. This is the cover of it. From here, you'll go through 41 pages, which will give you answers to most of your questions. A few highlights that we'd like to talk about in the RFP. The deadline is March 18th, 2024, 12 o'clock noon. The amounts that you can apply for is $20,000 minimum and a maximum of $70,000. The programs have a 20-month working period, or by March 30th, 2027, whichever is sooner. We'd like to highlight something new this year. Pages 8 and 9, eligible products, enhance the competitiveness of Hawaii specialty crops that have cultural and geographic relevance. This is something new. And so hopefully this will help with some of our other specialty crop products that are here in Hawaii. Page 16, indirect costs. Please note that this is not allowed. It's also mentioned in the RFP on page 16. Pages 30 to 35 are outcomes and indicators. On the download, it's the performance measures. This is where you'll match up your program or your project to see which outcomes and indicators will be relevant for the project that you have selected. So this, again, we just talked about the performance measures, and this is what you would download. And here is what the performance measures look like, and these are the outcomes. It is also known as outcomes and indicators.
So those terms are used intermingling in that fashion. So basically the grant program outcomes and performance measures that are outlined below should reflect your, they actually reflect direct stakeholder feedback in prior years. And then they help provide a framework that allows all of our grant recipients an opportunity to more accurately review their project activities and prove that it's also supporting the program's statutory purpose. So you'll notice as we go below, the outcome one, for example, there actually are 7 different outcomes, and we're not going to review every single one in detail. However, we will share that each outcome will have a title, and then it would have several bullet point items below that that will help you to reflect the work that you're performing during the project and what you hope to achieve. So for example, with outcome one, it's increasing consumption and consumer purchasing of specialty crops. So some of the bullet items that you may choose from below, you don't have to choose all of them, would be 1.1. What total number of consumers do we expect to gain knowledge about specialty crops? How many were children? How many were adults? Or how many consumers are going to consume more of that specific specialty crop as a result of our project, adults or children? What number of additional specialty crop customers are going to be accounted for in our project, whether we're going to have any additional business transactions because of our project, and whether we're going to increase sales in dollars, in percent change, or in combination of volume and average price as a result of enhanced marketing activities that were derived because we conducted this project.
There are 7 outcomes on this process. You don't have to have all 7. You can just tailor yours to what your outcomes match up with. So here's outcome 2, increasing access to specialty crops and expanding specialty crop production and distribution. Outcome 3, increase food safety knowledge and processes. Outcome 4, improve pest and disease control processes. Outcome 5, develop new seed varieties and specialty crops. Outcome 6, expand specialty crop research and development. Outcome 7, improve environmental sustainability of specialty crops. So again, you do not have to have all of these in your project, but at least one of them needs to match up with your project. Now, you would go to the project template, and we will go through the project template by page to help you understand the process.
So the actual template you'll see here is developed by the USDA Agricultural Marketing Service. So as you can see, there's going to be these blue boxes, and those are the fillable areas for you to enter your project information. And so as you can see, if there's a blue box, then you should be filling something in and or putting not applicable. It'll ask for your name, your contact name, your phone number, your email, your mailing address, the title of your project, and actually the duration of your project range. You know, when is it going to start? When is it going to end? And we've already reviewed the dates, right? 24 months or March 2027. Continuing on, here is an area where you can actually include a project summary. You are limited to 250 words or less. Now, remember, this is going to be disseminated to the public if you are awarded the grant. So therefore, you might not want to put all personal information, but just a project summary, and that should help.
Page 2 of the project profile template is your project purpose. Here, you would list why you're actually doing your project. Again, this is limited to 5,000 characters, and the box will expand as you type in it. On the bottom there, provide a listing of the objectives that this project hopes to achieve. Here, you would label it 1, 2, 3, 4, and the objective of the project. You'll use the plus sign on the left-hand column if you need to add additional lines.
The next page includes the number of project beneficiaries that you hope to impact. And also, it gives you an opportunity to identify whether you're going to be benefiting underserved farmers, and also whether you're going to be helping beginning farmers. Following that, there is an important statement by checking the box to the right that you are confirming that your project enhances the competitiveness of specialty crops in accordance with the Farm Bill. And there's a checkbox there in blue. Continuing on, this is an important added area. If your project is continuing efforts from a previously funded specialty crop block grant project, please indicate with this area here. You would need to advise us what your award numbers were for those projects, as well as the project titles that were previously funded. And moving to the next slide, how does your current project that you're proposing differ from any of the other previous efforts, and how are you going to build on those previous efforts? How are you going to impact outcomes? Are you going to provide the lessons learned from prior projects going forward into this current project. And then finally, how are you going to incorporate it into it? How are you going to make sure it's successful in meeting your new goals and outcomes? And very important, how likely is it that this project will in future become self-sustaining and not indefinitely dependent upon grant funds year over year?
Moving on to page 4, other support from federal or state or grant programs. Here you'd indicate if you're receiving funds from other grants, you would then check the box on the right. It's a drop-down menu, and then you would actually list the potential receiving funds from another federal or state grant program. You would also then describe how the specialty crop project differs from or supplements the other grant programs. And on the bottom there, external project support. You would then describe the specialty crop stakeholders who support this project.
Okay, here you're going to be selecting the appropriate outcomes and indicators as well as sub-indicators that we discussed earlier. You will have to choose at least one of the 7 listed below. And these are the ones that were actually approved by the Office of Management and Budget. So you'll see here the same 7, right? There were increasing consumption and consumer purchasing of specialty crops, all the way down to improving environmental sustainability of specialty crops. Now you'll see here that there's another box that says additional approved outcome if applicable. If you check that box because of the unlikely event that the outcomes and indicators of the 7 are not relevant to the project you're proposing, then you must develop a project-specific outcome and indicator on your own, and this is going to be subject to approval by the Agricultural Marketing Services. And then on the data collection below, you will then also have to advise how you're going to collect the data to report on your new outcome and indicator. Here is the budget narrative, because you also have the opportunity to create your budget. And if you have matching funds, you would need to delineate that as well. And that can be described separately. So if you would like to review all the funding considerations, please use that RFA to develop your budget narrative. But here you would say, I'm going to have personnel. This is the amount of funds I'm requesting, the fringe benefits for said personnel. If I'm going to do travel, inter-island or otherwise for research or project activity, this is where you're putting your funds for that. Equipment, supplies, contractual, and other. The other category is specific to any budget item that is not does not quite fit in the above expense categories. Then just keep in mind, indirect costs are not eligible in this project. And then moving towards the personnel below, you will notice the plus and minus signs again. This is where you're going to add personnel, the number of effort, level of effort, and the funds requested for each personnel contractor, personnel, no, sorry, just personnel. And then you would have the plus or minus to add more. Here you would have the justification for each individual listed in the table above and discuss what they will be doing and why. Specific to your project. Here in the fringe benefits, you would be using the fringe benefit rate and how much is requested for each personnel participating. And then on the bottom, there's going to be a travel section. Now the travel section, you will need to explain the purpose for each trip request. In addition to that, there is a special section where you can identify the actual federal travel regulations, and we will be covering some of those dollar figures in the summary section, so keep me posted for that. But you'll see here that it's going to ask you the trip destination, the type of expense, whether it's air, car, hotel, how many what kind of units of measure, how much do you need, how many travelers, and the funds requested, and again the plus and minus sign to add additional trips. Justifying your travel would be how would each trip justify, or I'm sorry, achieve the objectives and outcomes of your project. Explain when and where they would occur. And if you don't have all the information, you can say TBD. And in conforming with your travel policy, this is again another attestation confirmation checkbox that you are confirming that your organization's travel policies are being adhered to. And then finally, equipment. Any special purpose equipment that you need to purchase or rent, is a tangible, non-expendable personal property that has a useful life of more than 1 year. Now here is where the equipment would be equal to or exceeding $5,000 per unit, and it is only to be used for research, medical, scientific, or other technical activities. Now, if the acquisition cost of your item is less than that, then that is actually considered a supply, and you should list that in the supply section. Moving along.
Yep.
Equipment justification, that is self-explanatory, and here is your supply section, right? Anything less than $5,000 and so forth. And then the justification to follow.
Page 10 of the project profile template is the contractual consultant. So here you would list if you are going to have a contractual consultant, and you would list the cost, the name of that consultant or organization, an hourly rate, a rate value, and the funds requested for that. Again, these are all optional only if you do. If you do select a contractual consultant, you would then also have to do a justification on the blue box below. Once that's completed, you also have to check the box at the bottom right, conforming with your procurement standards of your company organization. Page 11, under others, here you would list a detailed list of other items that you need to purchase, along with the cost per unit, the number of units, the date that you plan to purchase it, and the funds that are being requested. Again, this is where you'd list for items that are under $5,000. You would then have to do a justification for the items that you have listed under other, and again, that goes in the blue box. We talked about the indirect costs there in the red outlined area. Indirect costs are not allowed with this RFP or this project profile. And finally, page 12 is program income. Program income is gross income earned by a recipient or subrecipient under a grant. So here you would list the source of the money, the nature of the program, the income, and then give a description and the estimated income that you would receive. Again, this is only if you anticipate the program will generate funds. So we've taken you through the project profile template, which is basically the application, but we're going to continue on here because it doesn't end with this. There's a few more forms that you'll have to fill out for us to attach in the actual email process to us. Going back to the original list where you have to download the project template, you'll also see Exhibit A and Exhibit C. Exhibit A is basically a contact and title page, information about your business. Who do we contact? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Exhibit C is an endorsement statement, basically that you certify all the information that you gave us is correct. Karen will go over some of just a budget narrative, just a couple hints or information to help you complete your application.
So as promised, here's a little bit of an overview on the budget. To explain, personnel would be any staff that you're going to employ in the course of your project. Here is the current mileage reimbursement rate, which is for 2024, it's 58.5 cents per mile. Here is the travel budget. So for example, inter-island airfare is running at around $200 per trip, round trip. Car rental is $100 per day, including gas. Reminder that the equipment is for a single item that's $5,000 or more. Otherwise, it falls under supplies. Rental would be shown under equipment as well. Items shown in supplies must include your per unit cost, as in your number of units actually purchased and then why you're purchasing it. Contractors are service providers that are not employed by you as opposed to an employee, as opposed to personnel. And if a contract is signed, then it's obviously a contractor or likely to be a contractor. Any types of shipping, stamps, and printing are not covered. And you would want to make sure probably that your program income that's earned during the time of performance of the project, you know, when you sell some of the crops that you've grown, they should be reinvested into the project. do keep the actual record on a separate sheet of your matching funds.
So here's just a little to do just before you get started. Just repeating what we said earlier, you'll read the entire RFP, decide on the purpose of the project. And again, that is the outcomes and indicators, also known as the performance measures. You'll then make sure you determine your objectives to achieve and the purpose. We ask that you do not change the wording of any of the performance measures. And I believe they've now fixed the form where you're not able to do it. You have to use exactly what has been presented to us. You need to select the outcomes to support the objectives. You need to select the associated indicators to quantify or convince that the outcome has been met. And then you need to describe in detail the data collection methods that will prove the indicators were qualified. So as you proceed on with the approved contract or agreement, there are also some performance measures that you need to adhere to. So we'll just talk briefly about those, but again, you would need to download those because you'll need them for future use.
So yes, if you are awarded with a project contract, you will be required to conduct two reports. The first would be the annual performance report, and that is for the award year 2024. It must be received within 90 days after the end of the first year of the date of your signed grant agreement, and then 90 days after the end of each subsequent year until the expiration of your grant period. You are required to report on the administration of the agreement and of each project that are approved within the agreement. So that would be your annual performance report. And then the next one would be your final performance report. Now that must be received within 90 days after the end of the grant agreement. And again, you are required to report on the administration of your agreement, each project approved within your agreement. And just as a reminder, your completed final performance report will be posted on the Agricultural Marketing Services website because you are using, obviously, our taxpayer funding.
Yeah. So we're going to leave the screen up for just a little minute before we go to the question and answer. Basically, how to apply. Here's the website that you can get the information, and that's the Department of Agriculture. If you go there, there's actually a button that will refer you to the State of Hawaii hand site. If you need to send us or submit, once you're ready to submit the application, to the right, you'll see the email address that you would email all of the forms to us, HDOA.addrfp@hawaii.gov. If you have any grant questions for us, you can also email that same email and ask questions, or you can call our grant telephone line at 808-973-9594.
And don't worry if you didn't have a chance or you don't have your pencil and paper handy, because this has actually been recorded, this is all going to remain on our website and be posted for your further reference.
We hope that you've enjoyed the presentation from us. And again, we invite you to apply for the grant. Go back to the website of HDOA if you need reference to this. We'll also post this presentation there for your needs. So we're going to stop sharing our screen. And Karen and I are back with you. And we ask that you use your raise hand button below if you have any questions.
And while we're waiting for questions to come in, we just want to say thank you very much for being a part of this webinar and for taking the time out of your lunch hour to actually join us, because specialty crops are very important to Hawaii, and we really want to make sure that we benefit our community at large and learn more and grow more and dine Hawaii.
Since we don't have any questions coming into us, I know you probably want to just email us. We're more than happy to take all those emails. We want to thank you again, say mahalo for joining Karen and myself, and remind you to buy local, eat local. Aloha.
Aloha.